Hi folks, Randy Rice here. Welcome to the Value of Testing podcast. Today I want to kind of give some additional perspective to a blog post that I wrote here a week or two ago called Adoption versus Acceptance. It's the AI Chasm, as I was calling it there in the blog post, and I still think of it as a big chasm in AI. So I'm going to outline in this podcast some really, I think, important things we need to understand about where we're at in AI. This can be important news for your career, and it's also, if you're coming at this from a software testing perspective and QA perspective, it may give you some additional rationale to maybe, I don't know, have a little bit more peace about where we're at in the whole AI journey, if you want to call it that, and why I believe QA and testing is going to be just as big a part of AI in the future as it's ever been. And my next podcast, I believe, is going to be about how the foundations are still the foundations, but we'll talk about that in the next episode probably. So here's the thing. When you're looking at a product and you're trying to determine where are we in the use of that product, a lot of things that we look at are around things like adoption. And, you know, one of the frequent metrics that you'll hear in any product or service is really how many people are using it, how many people are engaging with that particular product or technology. Maybe it's the number of people, sometimes it's a percentage of people, maybe by age group or country or region or something like that. But here's the thing, it's really easy to misinterpret adoption with acceptance. The reality is that people may be using something, but maybe it's only because they're forced to, like in the case of enterprise applications where management buys a product and they're the decision makers, and then everyone else in the organization is kind of forced to have to use that application. Now, acceptance is a different thing. It can be seen in various ways. It's a little bit related to adoption, but it's also it also speaks to do people like it or not? Do they find it helpful? Does it support their work? Those kind of things. Now, in some cases, this is a formal acceptance or rejection. We all know about user acceptance testing and that kind of thing. And in some cases, there is a formal sign-off where people say, yes, I like it, I accept it, we're going to use it. In other cases, acceptance might be a foregone conclusion, like if a contract's been signed, a purchase has already been made, and those kind of things. Now, once again, acceptance testing may be used for that kind of formal acceptance or rejection, or in the case of the contract being signed or the purchase being made, it may be to validate how good or bad something is, to find where the gaps are between how the application works and how your business processes actually work. And the goal then of acceptance testing might be to, once again, identify those gaps so that they can be closed. So to net it out here, adoption and acceptance are related but different. Just because you use something, even to a great degree, doesn't mean you fully accept it or like it. And forced adoption is even worse because when someone might be forced to use a product, people can comply, yet not use it very well. You know, one thing I've learned in my many years of consulting and practice in this field is that people get creative in how they follow the rules or don't follow the rules. It may look like people are actually using something, but they're just going through the steps as kind of a formality. They may have other ways behind the scenes they actually use it. One thing that I think is interesting to look at here, that there was a book written many years ago, I think it was like in the late 90s, by Jeffrey Moore, and it was called Crossing the Chasm. And that book was all about how do you market technology to various groups. And the big takeaway from that book was that you have the minority of people who are innovators and early adopters. They're going to start using things because they're new, they're cool, they are the new bright and shiny object, so to speak. And then after that comes the early majority. Here's the thing, but between the early adopters and the early majority, there's this big gap, which is called the chasm. Now, the message that you make to those early adopters is going to be totally different to the message that you make to win the early majority over. Now, in that example, in that context, I believe we've already crossed that chasm from the early adopters to the early majority. Next comes the late majority, which is where I think we're really crossing into right now. And it's not so much a chasm, but it's another transition point. Now, something else we need to understand here is that there is a difference between a customer and a user. And this has a big role to play when we're talking about adoption or acceptance. Now, in some cases, the user and the customer may be the same person. Basically, the customer is the person who's making the buying decisions. They have control of the money. A user is the person who actually has to apply or use the product or service. Now, in enterprises, it's very common for senior management to make the buying decision, and then, as I was saying earlier, to force the rest of the organization to adopt and actually use that product or service. Now, like with AI, an individual might subscribe to ChatGPT, at which point they're both the customer and the user. Another example of this might be a company might make a multi-million-dollar investment in AI, which makes them both the customer and then everyone else in the organization a user, whether they like it or not. Okay, so it's very clear. It's very important that we get clear on that distinction. So, one of the things that's going on right now, from my observation at least, is that AI is getting mixed reviews. Now, if you go by all the press and all the buzz, you might think that AI is at a very high rate of adoption. So when I started doing the research for this article, the most recent data I could find was January of 2026, and you kind of have to expect, well, if that's when the article was published, the data was probably gathered somewhere in the latter half of 2025. So I'm sure that the numbers I'm about to tell you have increased, okay? But I'll go ahead and tell you what I found. That study that I looked at said that only 13.3% of people worldwide are using AI with any type of regularity. So that group includes all the casual users, all the very occasional users, all the way up to the developers who are using it daily and people who use it all the time. It might include your friends who are creating all the funny little videos that they post out on Facebook and all that too. So it includes personal use versus business use and all that. So it can also include agents as well as chatbots. Now, my suspicion here is that a significant part of that 13% is due to that very casual usage, the chatbot use, the creation of the funny videos, and so forth. Now, interestingly, if you just look at the United States, 56% of the people in the USA use AI, with 28% reporting that they use AI weekly, and then 31% of Americans have never used AI. Daily use is reported by 12% and multiple times daily only 6% in the USA. Now, once again, with the speed of adoption, you want to treat these numbers that I just mentioned as a growing baseline. The actual numbers are certainly increasing. And once again, I expect that data was from the latter half of 2025. But even with that caveat, the numbers seem much lower than what you have been hearing from the tech leaders and the billionaires. Now, some have speculated that the picture might even be inflated to help drive investments, because some of these companies are getting ready to go public, and they need the strong image that they are on this great upward trend of usage and adoption. Now, one thing to also keep in mind here is the numbers reported go all the way up to the heavy side, with 88% of companies report using AI, and then 79% of companies using generative AI, and a whopping 96% of development teams say they're using AI. Now, the stunning part is that 24.6% of those surveyed say they are using software composition analysis to verify the security of code suggestions from AI tools. Let that sink in for just a moment, that just about every development team say they're using AI, but just a minority of that percentage is using any kind of analysis, whether it be static analysis tools or anything, security scanners, to make sure that the code is secure. Well, we also have other data about developers' use of AI. There was a Stack Overflow survey done in 2025 of developers. 80% of those developers reported using AI, but the trust and the accuracy of AI has fallen from 40% in previous years now to just 29%. And the favorability in AI decreased from 72% to 60%. So this is a downward movement there in the developer space. Now, 66% of developers, which, I think that's a fairly substantial number, they say they're spending more time fixing almost right AI-generated code. And 75% said that they would still ask another person for help when they don't trust AI's answers. I think those are very significant numbers. And it really takes away from this image that's out there that people can just do vibe coding and those kind of things, and if it doesn't get it right, we'll just vibe code again. We'll create an iteration. Well, what happens when you do that is the overall quality of the code just gets worse and worse, because the foundational design and architecture that you're working with gets eroded away by doing that. And then I just read a story today. Now, the story about Uber has been out for some time, about how it burned through its entire annual budget for AI in just 4 months. They were using it so much that they had to pull back on it because they just blown all their money. I just read a story today, it's out on MSN.com, that Microsoft is telling its developers to stop using AI because of the cost. That's another thing to let sink in, okay? Microsoft, who is heavily invested in OpenAI, is now telling its developers to stop using AI because they're running out of money to use it. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about here. This is the thing about, I call it in my article, a quiet rebellion is happening. And this is where things are really getting interesting, because there appears to be a growing amount of pushback, aka rejection or non-acceptance of AI, by people both individually and corporately. There was an article on cybernews.com in March 17th to be exact, where it says just 26% of voters feel positive about AI compared with 46% who hold negative reviews. In fact, the only topics with a lower net positive rating than AI in the NBC News survey were the Democratic Party and Iran. Okay, I'm not making political statements here. I'm just telling you what the survey said. Even the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and all the things going on around that is viewed more positively, the poll found. Now, part of this rejection of AI is being seen as people who use AI, such as at work, but who reject being forced to use it. And these people feel like it's diminishing their experience and their judgment and their skills as they do their work. Indeed, there was a Harvard study that showed that the people who exhibit the most value with AI are not the ones who rely on it for everything, but the ones who treat it as an assistant that requires close monitoring. Now, let's take a step back for a second. In recent months, there's been this incredibly fast increase going from AI as a tool and assistant to AI as an autonomous agent. And I think that is where we're starting to see a lot of the pushback. I think that's where we're starting to see a lot of the risk. Just going back to that Harvard study, look at who's being most productive with this. It's the teams that still have their skills in place. In fact, they studied workers in the Harvard study from Procter & Gamble and the Boston Consulting Group. They looked at where AI is most effective in increasing productivity and performance. And it also examined where humans still have the advantage. And one interesting finding there is that while individuals using AI might gain speed and performance, I think we've all experienced that, AI-enabled teams see the greatest gains. Just replacing humans with AI might not be the magic fix that some companies are betting on. And in fact, some companies that have let a lot of people go have started hiring some of those people back. Maybe not the ones that were let go, but replacing them in their roles. Now, at first this may seem kind of like a contradiction in AI messaging, which is meant to let AI do all the analytical work. But when you think about that, AI can be biased, it can make mistakes, and even lie. It makes sense that people still need to evaluate what it tells them. That was reinforced from that Harvard study. Now, the feeling that AI is eroding skills really does hit at the very heart of what work is all about, what the value of work is. Many people work just because they find satisfaction in it. And when you take away that satisfaction because technology can do it better or faster, people start to reject it because these skills people have worked their entire lives to build, and they feel like they're being eroded away by AI and the technology. Now, there's also a great desire for things that are authentic, whether it be in art, in music, writing, or interacting with an AI-powered customer service agent. People want to connect with the soul of another human being. This goes beyond technology organizations and use like that. These are individuals out there. These are our users and our customers. People are asking more and more, is this real or is it AI? And I think that's a question we should all be asking. I was just watching a video yesterday, and at first, it looked like this was a real live human. But after about 5 minutes into it, I started noticing weird little things in this person's facial expression. Eyebrows that were just randomly raising, and blinks that were just randomly occurring, and just little gestures. I can guarantee you this video right now that you're watching, this is me, okay? This is me sitting at my computer recording this, and that's the way that I will always do my videos. That's the way that I will always do my writing. Now, this is a kind of a paradox because on one hand, people are told to use AI. They're being told, don't fall behind. But on the other hand, a growing number of people don't like AI. Even LinkedIn has reportedly started detecting and penalizing AI-generated articles. If you're on LinkedIn any at all, you can tell those posts that have been generated, like by ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. And it goes even to YouTube. YouTube has recently started demonetizing channels that promote heavily AI-generated content. Now, the interesting twist here is that YouTube is using AI to detect AI content, and sometimes it even gets it wrong, like with animated video content. It's hard to tell AI from human-generated content at times. Now, why are these platforms taking these actions? Personally, when I see obvious AI-generated content, it makes me feel like the person didn't want to put the work in to craft an authentic piece. Or maybe they're unable to think for themselves, so they need AI to think for them. Now, sure, there's a place and time for AI to show value, such as in research and idea generation, but you have to take care because AI will omit things, misattribute things, make up things, and even lie about others. In fact, there are attorneys that are being sanctioned for citing non-existent cases based on AI input. It just happened recently here in my home state of Oklahoma. Now, just a few other data points. You might have seen some of the videos from some of the commencement speakers that were booed when they mentioned AI. It got pretty ugly, and the speakers were even shocked at the reaction. Apparently, they didn't realize that their audience is fighting against AI for entry-level jobs. Look at the data centers that are being built for AI across the United States. The people in those areas do not want them in their backyards or even anywhere near their backyards. They consume huge amounts of water, electricity, and other resources while generating heat and noise. Farmland is being destroyed. The tech companies have been given special tax exemptions, which permit them to take without giving back to the communities. Instead, the residents are seeing their utility bills increase, not by a little, but by multiples, like 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much. Then you look at companies that are radically shedding people, really good people, talented people, to invest in AI and automation. The big question, in my mind at least, is who's going to buy the things if the working middle class and even the upper middle class gets hollowed out. Elon Musk said recently in an interview that people should stop worrying about saving money, as in savings accounts. I wonder what he knows that we don't. Is he talking about universal basic income there? I'm not sure. Then you have Google upending the world of internet searches by making the AI response the first one seen. Now that impacts both the searchers and the content creators and the businesses that rely on search engine traffic to find their businesses and their information. The reality is that some, if not a lot, of searchers would like to actually browse through the search results. Yes, that's still possible, but AI is changing SEO so radically that the results you really want to see get buried because the algorithm has changed. Now, for the content creators hoping that Google will rank their web content highly, this is bad news, because if you go down in your rankings, it may take you actually months to get back up there. And with that large amount of search traffic disappearing, with AI results taking its place, then you just kind of have to hope that you appear in the AI results. And then you have the thing in here that people don't fully trust the AI results, which is understandable given what we know about AI and accuracy. I can tell you this is true from my own testing of doing search results. Now, according to a Pew Research report from October of 25, Americans who have seen AI summaries and search results are lukewarm about their values. Only 1 in 5 say they find the information extremely or very useful. 52% say it's somewhat useful, and 28% say it's not too or not at all useful. Only 6% report finding the AI results extremely helpful. I decided to do a little test on this, so I asked AI about it. Here's what it told me. It said, quote, "Many people express wariness about AI's potential impact on search engines as they are concerned about how it may change their information-seeking habits and the reliability of the results. While AI is reshaping search behaviors, traditional search methods still hold a strong preference among users." That's important to understand here. The users are not accepting this. They want to be able to still browse through things. Now the question I ask is, do I really trust what AI is telling me there? But I have just a real quick analogy here, and then we'll wrap all this up. It's like going into a store, okay? Let's say Walmart. You go into Walmart, and you want to find some coffee. So it'd be like you walk in the front door and there's someone saying, "Oh, what are you looking for? Coffee? Okay, here's Folgers. It's the most popular brand." "Well, I don't like Folgers." "Okay, then here's XYZ brand." I don't like that. I'm actually looking for something else." And you don't need to go down the aisle. Here, that's the kind of philosophy that we're dealing with here. Well, where's all this going? Okay, we're rapidly heading into a world where both acceptance and adoption are going to be out of our hands as individuals and even corporately. One of the other books that I remember from the past, it was published, I believe, in 2004, is called "The Inmates Are Running the Asylum" by Alan Cooper. Now, in that book, Cooper argues that the business executives who decide to develop complex technologies and products are not the ones in control of the technologies used to create them. Now, the book's context was all about desktop PC-based software, but it also extends to other software-controlled devices. And if you follow that book's metaphor, the inmates are the developers who create the features but don't fully understand usability factors. And the result is that usability often gets lost in the shuffle. If you think back to what software was like around the late 90s, early 2000s, whether it be web-based or desktop-based, you know that usability was a big issue. It still is a big issue, but it's better than it was back then, because now we know that we have usability experts that give us a lot of good feedback and information about the usability of software. Now, in this AI arms race, as some people have called it, the tech giants here would be the inmates. And even recently, just very recently, the CEO of Anthropic has made his public statement that we need to put the brakes on, that this is going faster than is safe for the people in this world. Okay, he's saying that in this race to create the most powerful AI models, that we may be going too fast for our own good. Now, I use AI for a lot of things, but I stop short of letting it think for me. I also refuse to shape my content around what I think AI wants to see, as with, trying to rank high in a web search. That's a endless battle. I know I'm sacrificing speed for authenticity. I give the example in the blog post that blog post took me at least a week to write. And I probably thought about the concept for several days before I even started typing a word. But what you're hearing right now and what is in that article, which you'll find in the show notes, I'll give you the link there, that is not AI slop. It may be Randy slop, but it's not AI slop. So these are my own thoughts, my own words, based on my own experience and perspective. Now, if you're a tester and even a developer or a general user, my encouragement is that while AI is a great tool, there's still many things it can't do. Even at the artificial general intelligence level, AGI, AI might not be able to match human reasoning and experience, assuming that is that we do not over-rely on AI to the point that we forget our fundamental knowledge and skills. Well, I hope this podcast has prompted some thoughts around how we as knowledge workers can use AI and benefit from it without losing our souls, our motivation, and our life's work. Now, if you're watching this and you say, hey, I would like to know some more about how do I really define team-based AI, especially in the context of quality assurance and getting a test strategy together for your organization, you can contact me either in the comments below or check the show notes. I give my websites out there, riceconsulting.com and mysoftwaretesting.com. If you like this video and if you like the things that I talk about on this channel, please subscribe and also give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and feel free to share it. I would love a share. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode next week. Thanks a lot.